Retail employees of Reddit, what are your Black Friday horror stories? Best Buy here. 4 Black Fridays at the highest grossing store that day and the company gets you a few wild tales. This one is quick. Guy tried to shove a Panasonic Blu-ray player into the front of his jeans. He was a rather large man, but dude, it's a Blu-ray player, seriously. I worked for 6 years at a Johnny Rockets in a mall as a server and management. We didn't open early like the rest of the stores because we are a restaurant and well, we don't serve breakfast. Had people shake our gates screaming that they wanted food. It would be just me and a opener getting the chair set out. I pointed them towards the food court and told them we didn't serve breakfast. A lady spit at me and told me, I know you have bacon. We do. In a fridge waiting to be cooked and put on a burger. I can only imagine her saying that in a tone that would imply she is onto your game of trying to hide the bacon from the customers. I know you have bacon. Dang, she's onto us. Back in my poor college days when I worked at Walmart, we had a fight break out over a bike. Fists were thrown and there was some blood. Eventually one guy got a hold of it and managed to get away from the crowd. He rode the bike out of the store to flee his pursuers without paying. $2 motherfuckers. I've thrown one punch in my life. It was on Black Friday, so it was the year the 360 came out. I was standing in line to get some external hard drive next to the video games, and there was this 11-ish-year-old kid with a woman in her 60s. He was waiting for his 360 bundle. Woman before him had gotten the last one, size all around. Then he says nope, one more, and begins the motion of handing it to the kid, and this guy comes out of nowhere and pushed the older woman and the kid. The kid hit his face on the edge of a video game rack. You know, the one with the metal and plastic dividers. At 19 years old, I don't know what came over me, but I instantly swung for the dude's head and caught him right in the temple, sending him into a Keurig tower in the middle of the aisle. Everyone froze, including me. Guy had dropped the 360 and got up and walked away. I slid it with my foot to the kid and he didn't say anything either. Best part was, as I still wanted the hard drive, I turned to get back in the end of the line. At the same time, the rep in charge of handing out the other items such as the hard drive asked who was next. The first 2 people in line just pointed at me, causing me to skip about 5 spots in line. I work back of house at a Toys R Us. I spent Black Friday taking big ticket items to the back where we just loaded them into the customer's car instead of trying to make our way to the front of the store. Apparently, someone decided it was fine to wander into the back storage room and start opening boxes to find what they wanted. Other customers saw this one jackass do it, and then decided it was okay if they did too. Myself and the other back of house guys were busy wrestling with a really obnoxious bed set. So when I made it to the other side of our back storage, I found like 8-10 people just taking cases off our bays and opening them, then tossing them aside if they didn't want it. They claimed there was nothing indicating they couldn't come back there. We have 2 signs on the swinging door saying employees only and warning, only authorized personnel beyond this point. Worked security at Target for 5+ years. For being a store in the rougher part of town, I don't have too many horror stories. The funniest one I like to tell is a couple years ago. I was there early doing crowd control. I would always talk to people in line, try to keep them entertained while they waited in the cold. The first couple in line had been there for about 13 or 14 hours. So we opened the store, and we have deals on all sorts of electronics, toys, etc. They get in line and have a shopping cart full of towels that we had on sale for $2. That's it, just towels. They were first in line outside and waited over half a day for $2 towels. When I left after my 12-hour shift, we still had shelves full of these towels, along with tons more in the stockroom. Well, a towel is about the most massively useful thing an interstellar hitchhiker can have. I worked at Radio Shack for a year in college. During Black Friday, one of the sale items was a $10 calculator marked down to $5. Too sweet. Elderly women came into the store looking for them. When I told them there was only one left in the display, the crap was on. It turned into a geriatric version of roller derby without the skates. The one grandma who lost the race called the other one a freaking bee as she was standing in the checkout line, gripping her $5 prize. I always imagined some little kid opening presents on Christmas morning and getting this stupid $5 calculator, not really wanting it and having no clue about the backstory behind it, as his grandma, sipping her tea, looks on with a triumphant gleam in her eye. Surely it's gin in that teacup. Someone punched a security guard in the face because he thought he was a customer skipping to the front of the line. He was just walking in the door to start his shift. So yeah, my town has those kind of people in it. Please tell us that customer got kicked out. I have witnessed two people fist fight over a goddamn toaster. My people are very passionate. I think it was around Black Friday 2004 and I was a cart pusher at a Walmart. In this particular year, Walmart offered a plasma TV at an extremely low price and was the hottest deal of the year. A man showed up the Tuesday before the big sale with a tent, ice coolers, generator, TV and everything he needed to brave the 3 nights he would be staying over. He continuously talked about being first in line and how he was going to get the plasma TV and how he was hosting the next Super Bowl party, so this was just going to be the best thing ever. Come around Thursday night, I showed up to my shift and he was still there in a jolly mood, thankful he was about to be able to go home and sleep in his own bed. The news came and he did a short interview and explained what he was waiting for, how he was able to get the time off. He was a truck driver and was overall excited over the whole ordeal and prided himself for toughing out the cold. The line for the entrance wrapped around the whole front of the door and about another 300 yards or so past the store with thousands of people waiting to get in. At 5 AM, the doors opened and the man goes straight to the plasma TVs to see that they were all gone. What happened? The garden center at the Walmart opened up about 10 seconds before the front doors and those that came the night before scooped up on all 15 plasma TVs. This guy who had been there since Tuesday afternoon was dumbfounded and argued with management but was stonewalled and told there was nothing that can be done. That guy's Thanksgiving was a bust for sure. Walmart story time. A couple years ago when the sale started there was a surge of people trying to get their stuff. One lady got knocked down and her pen went straight into her neck, thankfully missing the jugular. The fricked up part is no one tried to help, they just walked over her to get their shitty deal items. An associate that saw it happen had to stand over her to protect her from getting trampled. When the ambulance crew arrived they had to literally shove people out of the way because no one would move. People suck. I thought you were going to end it with the ambulance crew arriving, and they walked over her too and went straight to get the leftover deal items. I haven't told this story in a while, so I worked for Mrs. Fields Cookies in my local mall during Black Friday back when I was in high school. Our manager got called to a store in a different city because a manager had very severely hurt themselves melting chocolate for their chocolate dipped cookies. I end up having to work for the majority of the day with an equally lazy buddy of mine slinging cookies and taking orders for cookie cakes while the mall was packed. Around 4 in the afternoon, and about $1,600 in sales, a gentleman in a button-down Mrs. Fields Cookies shirt comes to our counter telling us he had to do a midday drop for us for whatever money we had taken in the day. I let him in the back. He tinkers for a second on the computer and ends up taking our deposits. So now it's an hour before closing time. My boss is now back to our location to help us close. He starts going through our paperwork and money and realizes we are about $1,600 short. I explained to him that Mr. So-and-so came down to our location to do a midday drop since he didn't work. He told me Mr. So-and-so doesn't exist and calls their corporate office. It turned out this guy had gone to over a dozen Mrs. Fields in the area and robbed over $10,000 worth of money. They never figured out who it was. I ended up being fired over it with my buddy. We stole a giant cookie cake as compensation. Worth it. This person figured out that if you act as though you hold authority, an awful lot of people will just go with it. When I worked at Sam's Club, during the madness one Black Friday morning, we caught a woman stuffing the inside of her pants with frozen lobster tail. She would unpackage them and throw the trash in a stack of tires that were on display. I was a messed up worker when the week came out. The second we unlocked the doors, crap was a riot. People were fighting one another, swearing, crying, just about everything. People were so desperate. When people managed to get one, somebody would throw the other person to the ground and buy it. I worked for BBY for 6 years. Everyone knows about the lines that you stand in outside. Part of the process is once you get into the store you stand in another line to buy your products. Our manager thought he was particularly smart winding the line through our appliance department. Mind you, there is usually 1,500 plus people in the building at 6 AM, with the line still outside. Well, we get a complaint from one of our patrons. After checking the dryers we find a nice turd in one good size solid constancy just sitting there. A lady who did not want to lose her spot opened the dryer and shat right there in front of everyone. I decided that day, even though I may want stuff, I will never crap in front of an entire crowd of people for $799 50 inches plasma TV. And I decided today I will never buy a display floor model dryer. My first Black Friday, I was working at a Walmart. I was assigned to be one of the employees that would cut open the plastic on the pallets which contained our merchandise, which were all in the floor. Basically, as I readied box cutter, I got shoved by a customer and I fell right on it and sliced my hand open. After getting through that and patching it up, I came out on the floor and promptly got punched in the face when I picked up a DVD on the ground. A customer apparently wanted it. Frick Black Friday. It's okay, because it's a holiday tradition and all, so you know, no one gets charged with battery. I worked at Walmart for 4 years and worked all Black Fridays. I've seen a woman hit another woman in the chest with those toddler car boxes you drive in. Woman who got hit was a week or 3 post-op of open heart surgery. Lots of blood, right in front of me. No idea what happened to the woman who hit her. I do think she got the toy car, purchased it and left. I was working a register at a Circuit City. Was typically customer service, but there was no chance we were returning anything on Black Friday, and there were plenty of managers on hand for upset customers, and apparently some idiot ran into a transformer nearby and took out the power to the whole retail block. Everyone who had items they wanted to purchase, several hundred people, had to just sit down and chill out for around an hour and a half while we waited for the power to return. The funny part to me was how many people asked me, often in a very pissy, exasperated tone, "When's the power coming back on?" Mind you, I was working at an isolated register, hadn't left or been visited by any other employees as I was surrounded by customers, and the people asking had been sitting next to me the entire time. I understand I was wearing a uniform, but come on people, muster up a little common sense. Also, I had a bin beneath my counter where I kept things that people had decided they didn't want to buy. One of the hot items that year was USB thumb drives for like $5. I had someone spot a few in my bin and asked if they could have them, so I looked down to grab a couple, and came back up to around 10 hands outstretched. I was really worried there was going to be an issue over who asked first. I just said sorry, but someone's going to be upset no matter what I do, and quickly shoved the drives into random hands. Luckily no one gave me a hard time or fought with each other. I am very glad I don't have to work that 4 AM to midnight shift ever again, and I have nothing but sympathy and respect for all of you still working in the trenches of retail. Stay safe out there this week. Back when I worked retail we had people lining up at the doors. We hadn't finished setting up the signs yet, so we were running late. At about a minute after 12 the people outside started pushing on the door and cursing at my manager. The door was a cheap piece of crap, so even though it was locked they were able to push it inward. Problem was, it never actually opened, but the people at the back of the crowd thought it did, so they started pushing and the people at the front started being crushed against the door. When my manager saw this she immediately opened it up and about 5 people at the front spilled onto the floor and the rest of the people behind them started trampling over them. They were okay though because they were all young guys and I saw them shopping a few minutes later. You have been visited by the side quest cat. It only appears every 200 years. You will be granted many adventures, but only if you comment, "I am coming." Kitter, if you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.